the truth that God is a great God. And one day he's going to come and take us home to be with him. And we'll just be singing his praises for all eternity. Man, today, this Sunday is a very special Sunday. It comes around once a year. But this Sunday marks 24 years that Carol and I have had the sheer joy of serving as your minister family. We began at Temple on October 1st, 1998, Marshall. 1998. That's 24 years ago, and that's a long time. It's almost a quarter of a century. Almost a quarter of a century we've been here. And our children have grown up here. And we, along with some of you all, have grown older here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, Lorraine. It sure has. And so today, we're going to talk on the topic, we're not finished yet. Because something happened to me recently that was a reality check that I have not experienced in a long time. It was such a reality check, it's like I got checked up against the side of the hockey ring. But what happened is that I received word about a month ago that a fellow minister of mine was retiring. And we came here to the Champaign-Urbana area about the same time. And he's just a few years older than I am. And when I heard he was retiring, it blew me away. I said, wait a minute. He's retiring, but he's so young. You know, what is going on here? But then I found out there were some health issues and some things that he was dealing with that led to his decision to retire. And so he's been here about as long as I have. And after all his years of ministry and his time and life he's put into it, he's leaving behind him a congregation of roughly 40 members who are struggling to continue the ministry beyond himself. But as I thought about my friend retiring, I thought about me. And I thought about Temple Baptist Church. And I thought, what would happen to Temple Baptist Church if I retired? Now, I want you to know that retirement is not on my radar. I'm not even thinking about that. I am too young and I'm too healthy and my heart is too youthful and I'm too crazy and enjoying what I'm doing so much. Man, that's not even a thought right now. I'm sort of like a young Marshall Thompson. I'm going to wear out. I'm not going to rust out, Marshall. That's exactly right. I don't have time to rust out. But I thought about us. What would happen to us today if I retired today? But more importantly than what would happen to Temple Baptist is what would happen to all of our ministries. You see, every church has to have a critical mass of people for it to continue to be a church. Enough members, people to financially keep the church going, to have enough energy to keep the church going, to do the ministries in order to keep the church going. And honestly, if I retired, I don't think we have a critical mass that we need to keep us going. You know, and we can continue to do the things that we're doing, and I can continue to minister the way I'm in ministering. And we can continue to go in the direction that we're going. But if we do that, the reality is that in whatever number of years down the road I decide to retire, we still may not have the critical mass we need for the ministries to continue beyond us. And we could choose that. We could really choose that. And if we did, that would more than likely be our future. But man, I want you to know I've been praying about this. This really rocked my world. But in my prayers, I had God lay on my heart, Scott, I won't let you choose that. You know, he let me know our ministry to the Champaign Chinese Christian Church is too important. Our ministry to the Eden Center is too precious. Our ministry we have to the ROTC is too critical. And our watch care over the MMO and how it reaches out and helps young families in the community is just too essential. And as I prayed, I sensed God saying to me, Scott, I want you to make a different choice than that. I want you to move into a different future than that and make decisions different than that. And I want you to do things differently than you've done before and minister in ways that are different than you've ministered before. And be here in a way that you've not been before. And because you've got to choose a future that's different than the future that you're currently choosing. Because, Scott, you're not finished yet. Because Temple Baptist Church is not finished yet. Because God is not finished yet. And this morning we're going to look at an individual, a man named Caleb, an Israelite, 85 years young in the Old Testament, who wasn't finished in his life. The years around 1400 BC, the Israelites Moses freed the Israelites from Egypt and took them across a hot, hard desert to the Promised Land. And he got right to the edge and he passed away, he died. But then his second in command, Joshua, took the leadership role and led them into the Promised Land, and they began to conquer the Promised Land, at least most of it. And now the dust has settled. The Israelites are there, and they're dividing up the land. And it's putting out markers, which tribe would live in which space. And as they're divvying up the territory, Caleb, Joshua's second in command, comes up to him. Caleb, who's been his friend for so many years. Caleb, who's been his second in command, comes up and talks, and we find that Caleb was not finished yet because of the convictions born in his past. Joshua chapter 14, verse 5. And he's talking to Joshua. We read these words. So the Israelites divided the land just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now the men of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, you know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, at Kadesh Barnea about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my brothers who went up with me made the hearts of the people sink. I held the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet and the convictions you have you. And the desires reflect your convictions. And the decisions you make follow your convictions. And the things you do lead up and line up with your convictions. And you do things you've never done before. You say things you never said before. You go places you've never gone before. And you brave things other people are scared of because of your passionate convictions. And 45 years earlier, as Caleb was 85 years old, 45 years earlier, he brought back a report to the people of Israel according to his convictions. And his report was that if God has given us this land, no one or nothing can stop us from taking it. All we have to do is step into it and receive it. And Caleb was basically saying to all the Israelites and to the leaders, he said, I'm not finished yet. You may be finished yet. You may be scared. You may be too tired. You may be worn out. The desert may have been too hot and too hard. And you may want to stop, but man, I am just beginning. I'm not finished yet because you are discouraged. No, I'm not finished yet until I am finished. And 45 years earlier, the Israelites decided to quit rather than risk it all to have a chance to live. But Caleb was willing to risk his life, his all, so that he might gain life. Man, what are your convictions? Who of you here this morning is willing to fight for your future? If it doesn't matter to anyone else, are you willing to die on this battlefield? What if your life matters more to you than you matter to you? The life of a Jesus follower is not a life of self-fulfillment, but of self-sacrifices. You are not finished until you are finished. And Caleb was not finished yet because the convictions of his past gave him a really amazing power in his present. Verse 10. Now then, just as the Lord promised, Caleb says, he has kept me alive for 45 years. Since the time he said this to Moses while Israel moved about in the desert. So here I am today, 85 years old. 85 years old. And hear these words, I'm still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard that the Anakites were there and their cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out, just as he said. Then Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. Joshua blessed Caleb. Now hear that. He blessed Caleb with mountains filled with giants. He blessed Caleb with an opportunity to have more battles, to engage in more conflict. And he gave Caleb this amazing opportunity at 85 years of age in his life, and he's challenged him to step into it. Caleb, are you wanted it? You want that land? Here it is. It's yours. Here's the opportunity. Now go seize it. You know, I remember Pastor Erwin McManus saying that an opportunity is sort of like a big long tube of glass. It's wide open at one end, and it sort of gets really tight and thin in the middle, and then this tube opens up at the far end. You know, and that's the way it was with Jesus. You know, in the middle, the opportunity is hard. And people give up and give out in the middle of the opportunity. You know, they don't want to lose any sweat, much less blood. At the beginning, it's easy. The going is encouraging. The middle, it gets very strenuous. But at the other end, it's only as you go through the middle are you able to reap the benefits, the rewards of making it through, of going all the way through that opportunity. And it was that way for Jesus in his life. Now think about it. Jesus in his life. He began his ministry, and the opportunity was wide open. The Bible tells us he was going around the villages and the cities and leading people to God, and he was healing all kinds of diseases and just teaching and preaching, and the crowds were following him. It was such a wonderful time in his life, and he was enjoying every moment of it, and the people were being moved and enjoying the love of God through his son Jesus. But then it moved to the middle. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, the middle got really hard. And it was there in Gethsemane that he took his disciples with him. And he said, stay here and pray for me. And he went a stone's throw further, and he was begin praying. He said, God, if it's your will, if it's any way possible, take this from me. Take this. This is more than I can bear, God. Take this from me, but not as you will, but as I will. And an angel came and ministered to him. And the challenge was so overwhelming. And the middle was so hard for him. It says that Jesus prayed with such passion and such anxiety and such fear that is if he prayed as with sweat drops as of blood. And then the cross. I am so glad that Jesus did not give up in the middle. I am so thankful that Jesus didn't bail. Jesus had to go through the crucifixion in the middle so that we could realize the power of the resurrection at the other end. Jesus was not finished until he himself, as he was there on the cross, said, "It is finished," and only then was it finished. And if you are breathing today, it is not finished for you. But you won't be able to battle and seize the opportunities at 85 if you have not learned to fight at 25. There is a future God has created for you. But you can't know that future and receive that future from him and live the life that he's called you to live unless you're willing to live the life that you have right now. And you are absolutely not finished until it is finished. In Temple Baptist Church, I know to the depths of my being that we are not finished yet. We are not finished yet because God is not finished with Eden yet. I see, Dale, the ministry you're doing there in Eden, and I see the lives that are being touched and how we're stepping in that space in that building and blessing individuals and bringing hope and help and encouragement and blessing bags and articles and items and food and plastic Tupperware and bus passes. You know, we're not finished yet because God is not finished at Eden yet. And we're not finished yet because God is not finished with the ROTC yet. Our missionary Daniel, he's gone through one of the hardest times in his life with his father passing. And it has rocked his world. And we have sat down to lunch together, and we prayed together, and we hurt together. But he's back up doing PT, physical training with those young men and women, because Daniel Jones is not finished yet at the ROTC, and neither are we. And we're not finished yet because God is not finished with the Champaign Chinese Christian Church yet. I see this sanctuary on Sunday morning coming in, and I see young Chinese men and women who are here worshiping, praising God, and lift their voices. Students who have come back again to study this fall semester. And I see excitement, and I see the word being shared and lives being changed. And we're not finished yet because MMO is not finished yet. Jennifer Clark, the director, still has they're at full capacity. They're still ministering to the families in this community. The little children are coming into them, and we come up beside them and help them and pray for them and stand with them. And we are not finished yet because our community groups are not finished yet. We are not finished yet because more than a reboot, God wants to give us a rebirth. Rather than resuscitate us, God wants to resurrect us. And we're not finished yet because God is not finished yet. I want you to know, when we came here 24 years ago, when God called Carol and me to be the pastor family of the Temple Baptist Church of Champaign, Illinois, he called me to be the pastor of the church who wanted to do their part and was ready and willing to do their part to change the world. And to that end, we are revamping our community groups. God has said, Scott, this is going to be the way forward. We're revamping our community groups. We're moving from Bible study to storytelling. In a Bible study, I was the only teacher, but in storytelling, we are discipling everyone to become a teacher. In Bible study, we would go deep into the scriptures, and only the Christians could understand what in the world we're talking about. But in storytelling, it is there accessible for everyone to learn and to connect with God through his Bible. And in the Bible study, I was the only one talking, but in storytelling, everyone gets an opportunity to talk and to share and to join in. so that we can grow our groups and reach a critical mass and continue our ministry beyond each of us and all of us. What we do here is too important. And Temple Baptist Church, we are not finished yet. In fact, we are just beginning. Caleb was not finished yet because the convictions of Caleb's past led to the power in his present and enabled him to leave an inheritance in his future. Verse 14. So Hebron has belonged to Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, who was the greatest man among the Anakites. Then the land had rest from war. So Hebron has belonged to Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, ever since. Hebron belonged to Caleb and his children, and to his children's children, and to his children's children's children, ever since, all because of his convictions to follow the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. I want you to know you are not finished yet. You may feel like you're finished. You may be frustrated. It may be hard for you, but you're not finished yet because God is not finished yet. There's something that needs to be done in this world that only you can do, and God needs you to do it. And you're not finished until God is finished. You just need to accept the future he wants to give you through his Son and accept it from him. You know, Jesus came to change the world, but changing the world would cost him his life. And one thing Jesus showed us is that there is no resurrection without crucifixion. There is no life without death. And out of his convictions, Jesus died and gave his life so that we could live. And we live. And we have life, and we're not finished.